Good Friday morning, happy Easter Chag, a guten Erev Shabbos as well. Hope you are doing well, hope the Yom Tov went well, hope you're taking care of yourselves. Tomorrow, God willing, when we read the Torah, yes, unfortunately we do not have a Kriyat Torah here in Shul, but we do have the opportunity to read the Parsha, to perhaps do it on our own pace. We're going to be reading Parashat Shmini. At some point, second half of the Parsha, we're going to be reading the list of non-kosher birds. The way it works with birds is that all birds are kosher. There are 24 birds that are listed as non-kosher. We have a little bit of issue of identifying those 24 non-kosher birds, and therefore we only eat a bird with a masoret, with a tradition. Fine. We're going to focus on one specific bird. We've talked about this in the past. The bird the Torah talks about is the SHALACH, one of the non-kosher species, the SHALACH. What is the SHALACH? So there are two translations presented by the commentators. Some say it is actually the pelican. The pelican. Others say it's the cormorant. So two explanations given to this bird, and obviously a non-kosher species. Now, the Talmud actually shares with us that you should know that when Rabbi Yוחnan would watch this shalach, this bird, he would say, oh, the judgment of the Almighty has such depth in it. In other words, he saw the behavior of this bird, and he would sit there, he would meditate, and he would say, you know what, when I see it, I somehow sense the judgment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the judgment of the Almighty. Now, what exactly is the judgment when we're talking about a bird, either the pelican or the cormorant? So Rashi, in the Talmud, this is in Khulin 63, presents two explanations. Explanation number one relates to the fish. In other words, there's a fish making his way through the waves in the ocean, and out of nowhere, the pelican comes, makes its well-known dive, and scoops it up. Watching it, I've done that in South Florida, watching the pelican making its dive is an incredible scene. And you could think about the judgment the fish is going through. The fish is minding its own business, and out of nowhere, it is shocked and scooped up and gone. So Rabbi Yוחnan obviously not talking about so much about fish, but about the human condition, that the judgment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is such that at times out of nowhere we're struck with the challenge. That's explanation number one. Explanation number two, Rabbi Yוחnan says, is that sometimes the great judgment has to do with the fact that to bring our livelihood, our parnasah, we have to work hard. And the cormorant, Rabbi Yוחnan tells us, when it wants to get its food, it has to dive deep down to the bottom of the ocean. This is something that was identified when it comes to the cormorants off Argentina, the imperial cormorants, that they dive close to 50 meters to get their fish. And some members of the congregation shared with me that they once watched cormorant fishing. So the judgment here is not on the fish, but on the bird. This bird that HaKadosh Baruch Hu requires it to make its way deep down to the bottom of the ocean to get its food. That too is judgment. So that's what inspired Rabbi Yוחnan. So it's interesting to note that the two explanations in Rashi, each one of them relates to a different translation of what this shalach is. For us during this time of challenge, we are people of faith, and we recognize that it's out of nowhere. Right? Nothing that we were able really to predict. We have to deal with circumstances that are new to us. But we recognize there's a higher being. It's not random. And God Almighty wants us to do what's right during this period of time. And what's right is to take care of ourselves, to be optimistic, to recognize that, yes, at times we have to have a davening alone. There are those who couldn't say Kaddish. We had a Yiskar alone. These are challenges upon challenges that exist. And the many that need a refuah shalema, a lot, indeed, we have to be mindful of. But it's the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we're going to do it the right way. We're going to do it with optimism. And do it with prayer that HaKadosh Baruch Hu indeed should hear the cries of the people of Israel and of humanity, that we should merit better days, and when those better days come, we should be very appreciative of every single detail. Every little thing should be appreciated, and that's what we, the Jewish people, are about. Hakarat HaTov, about Hoda'ah, about appreciating the good, being thankful for what we have. That is Jewish. And we're going to be able to do it in the future, Be'ezrat Hashem, boy, to the fullest extent, once we are able to compare it and to contrast it to these challenging times. For now, let's continue having an uplifted spirit. We should have a Shabbat, Shalom, hear good news, and take care of yourselves. All the best. Bye-bye.